My name is Patrick White, and my wife and I have been married for 25 years. Up until January 1st of 2014, we had pretty much a normal life, been attending Centerpoint since its beginning. And that all changed just after midnight on the morning of the 2nd. I was asleep in bed, and I was woken up by my son, who said, "There's something wrong with Mom." I got up out of bed, and when I got to her in her chair, she wasn't breathing. He called 911. I started doing CPR on her, and the ambulance transported her to the hospital. I rode in the ambulance with her, and I grabbed my phone and started making phone calls. And I said, "Something's wrong. I don't know what's going on, but I need prayer." Once we got to the hospital, the doctors took Dawn into the back and took me out to a waiting room. And the first time the doctor came out to see me, she introduced herself to me, and she said, "I don't want you to get your hopes up. Dawn has been oxygen deprived for an extended period of time, and I don't think she's going to survive." After talking to the doctor, I didn't have to sit for very long before people started to show up from church. John and Tommy Green arrived, and then followed by members of our Connect group, other members of the church, and people started having small prayer groups right there in the waiting room, pulling out Bibles and praying for Dawn at that time. The doctor came out again a short time later and said, "We know your wife is an organ donor, and we'd like to go ahead and start that process. And if there's anybody that would like to come and basically say their goodbyes, they need to do that now." While I was back there with her by myself, I had the toughest conversation that I've ever thought I would with my wife. And I told her at that point that I can't imagine my life without her. We've been married for 25 years, and she makes me whole. But I told her that God has a plan, and if it's His plan for her to go home to be with Him, then that's what she needs to do, and it would be okay. At that moment, everything got quiet in the room, and it seemed like everything just stopped, and I heard a voice crystal clear that said, "I've got this." And I knew at that point that regardless of the outcome, it was going to be okay. Family continued to come in and out and see her, and at one point, Tommy and John went back with me again and prayed for Dawn again. While the three of us were back there, I noticed her hand moved, and I asked the doctor about it, and the doctor said, "No, that's not brain function, that's spinal cord nerves. Because she was oxygen deprived for an extended period of time, we don't believe there's any brain function." A few minutes later, a nurse came in and started to put a needle in Dawn's wrist to do some more testing, and when she did, Dawn flinched and pulled her hand back. And I looked at the doctor and I said, "That's not nerves, she felt that." And the doctor said, "Well, I can't explain this, that doesn't make any sense." Friday evening, I went in to visit her, and I put my hand on her forehead and said, "Hi, I'm here, babe." And she opened her eyes and looked at me. And I said, "Can you hear me?" And she nodded her head yes, at which point I started bawling like a baby. The nurse came in and said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I asked her a question and she answered me." Over the course of the next 30 days, while Dawn was in cardiac intensive care, she continued to improve. Just as I was told, God's got this. They were able to ultimately get her off of the ventilator. They took her feeding tube out. We saw her start eating solid food on her own again. The therapists were able to get her up and walking. She was able to start talking and communicating with us again. And it was really impressive. The staff even continued to refer to her as their little miracle. And it really was one miracle and one answered prayer after another. She continues to improve, but we've got a long way to go, and doctors tell us that it's a 3 to 4 year healing process. We still deal with some memory issues and some physical limitations, but this has taught us a number of things. It's brought us a lot closer together. It's taught us that we're not going to put off doing things till next year or eventually getting around to it, that we may not have eventually.
One of the things I've always wanted to do is swim with manatees. And finally, my husband bought us tickets and equipment and everything else, and we went out and swam with manatees. I've put all my hope in God, and I have faith that He'll heal me and
You'll continue to get better?
continue to get better.
A year ago, I was told by a doctor that my wife wasn't going to survive. And I've always been taught that children and your spouse are gifts from God. And that makes her the best gift that I've ever gotten twice.